This is Omar Ahmed for IFL TV in association with MTK Global. We're in New York, home with Joe Markowski, a very sought after man these days. It's been a while since I interviewed you. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, obviously you've been a busy man recently.
Yeah.
We all know you've done a sort of a new deal where you're launching into 200 territories, is that correct, Joe?
It's not really a new deal, to be honest. A lot of the rights we owned in boxing, the sort of partnerships with Eddie and with the Golden Boy guys, there are sort of details and nuances to them, but mainly those rights we've cleared in globally, or have the rights to clear globally. So it's for us, it's about just using those ourselves rather than selling them to other broadcasters. We can do it technically, and for us, we saw loads of benefit to doing it. So it's not a load of new deals. It's about us organising ourselves and getting our tech platform ready, and seeing lots of opportunity going forward in going global.
So the rights were already actually in place then?
Mainly, yeah. We've done a few sort of tweaks and a few extensions into certain markets, but generally, like the Golden Boy deal, for example, from the day we signed that, we own global rights, and we've sold the content to other broadcasters in other markets up until now. We're now just keeping that content for ourselves and using it on Dazn in new markets and territories.
Is that because they weren't paying that much anyway? So
no, it's because we see significant value to our business in doing that. We're 4 years old as a broadcaster, full stop. We launched in 2016. We're less than 4 years old actually, and we're going to be the only broadcaster in sport that's truly global. So with that comes a load of advantages for our business, both in terms of reaching new fans, but also for growing our business on a more corporate level. So it made a load of sense to do it. It's nothing to do with other broadcasters. It's about us growing our own business and seeing an opportunity to do that.
So in these new countries, it was more of a launch then, rather than anything else. Would you say that's correct?
It's a global launch. I don't think we're specifically launching in any given market. I wouldn't say we are deep dive launching into the UK. Yes, content that we own in the UK will be made available on Dazn in the UK. We're not coming out in any market that we're launching in now and sort of beating our chest and saying we're going to be the biggest sports broadcaster in this market, because we're not going to be the biggest sports broadcaster in each of those markets initially. It's about, for us, making our service available, engaging with the hardcore boxing fans in particular that have been crying out, as you've seen, I'm sure, on social media for probably 2 years now, for us to launch in certain markets, UK, Australia, Scandinavia, to name three. Learning about those markets, learning about those fan bases, and those that work, we'll go and invest more heavily in the coming years. That's really our sort of the plan.
Every time I've interviewed you, and it's the same with Coogan, obviously the UK always has come up, and you've had to be
tactful
exactly around the issue. Now we know you're going to launch in May, so people in the UK can download the Dazn app from May. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. I think many people who've expressed an interest on our website to testing the product may be sent an email in the month of April to be invited to a testing phase prior to the full launch. So I'm sure many of your audience will receive that. But formally, prior to that May the 2nd fight with Canelo, I'm sure we'll get into in this interview who that's going to be. The public will be able to download Dazn in the app stores, subscribe at $4.99 a month, and consume the content that we've got available on a rolling monthly subscription.
We mentioned May 2nd, and whoever it is, it's a great start for you in the UK, because it's going to be a break, we know that. It's either Callum Smith or Billy Joe. It's looking like it's Billy Joe, but it keeps changing every week, every day. Nothing's official yet. But as I said, it's going to be a Canelo fight as your first one in the UK, and it's going to be against the Brits, so you couldn't really have a better start, could you, Joe? No,
it's fantastic for us, and we'll obviously get into the refinement of which Brit it is, and the announcement. We're working on that very closely. Hopefully that'll be next sort of 72 hours, maybe the next 3 or 4 days. Very exciting for us, great start, but for me, obviously it's about backing that up month on month, week on week with great content. That's live content, the shows, namely the Golden Boy and the Matchroom US shows, shows from around the world that we'll acquire and build on, but also non-live content as well. So what are we doing from a documentary standpoint? What are we doing from a weekly talk show standpoint? There's various things we're working on. We've recognised there's a huge base, and you speak with these guys on a daily basis, of hardcore boxing fans who are crying out for a product like ours in the UK. We've got to go and deliver consistent value month on month for them to justify taking £4.99 from them every month. So that's one market of particular focus for us, the UK. As I said, there are 7 or 8 others that I think will be of particular focus as we go global. I'm sure we'll be surprised by other markets as well in a positive way. So UK definitely very much in focus for us on that front.
So at the moment we know it's going to be May 2nd, you're launching, starting with a Canelo fight. It's going to be £4.99 per month for people in the UK. And you've got exclusive rights to Matchroom USA shows, Golden Boy shows, Golovkin shows, Canelo shows, practically. You haven't got exclusive rights to Sky, so obviously Sky have got them shows, the Matchroom UK shows, and Joshua Fight Nights.
Correct.
That contract we know ends in 2021.
That's in the UK.
Yeah.
We're working with Matchroom on various things relating to their UK shows on an international basis. But in the UK, the Sky UK shows will remain with Sky.
Yeah.
And I'm very keen to stress that for your UK fans. And we're not coming in and saying we're going to be the biggest sports broadcaster in the country. We're going to focus on using the content we already own to learn more about the markets, to engage with the fans we can reach, deliver value for them. And in time, as I said, when we learn more and we know that markets work, we know more about those fan bases and those sort of communities of fans, we'll go and invest more heavily in certain markets. I hope the UK longer term.
Talk to me about the price point at £4.99. We know in the States the price point has changed. So yeah, one question about the price point, and secondly, do you think it could change in the future in the UK?
But if we go and buy in the future in the UK significant media rights inside or outside of boxing, then of course we're going to consider our price point in looking at those deals. In this first phase, and it is only a first phase, the latter phases will see us expand and invest more heavily in certain markets, buy specific sets of rights in specific markets, and probably even buy certain rights on a global basis. That's one of the benefits of this for us. We can buy content now as the only broadcaster properly who can do this, buy content on a global basis. But in the first phase, it's about us reaching a hardcore of fans with a specific, relatively niche set of content, let's be honest. And we think $4.99 in the UK, as an example, it is an appropriate price point for that sort of introductory first phase. I'm not going to sit here and say the pricing will never change. It will if we go and buy significant rights inside or outside of boxing. We've got to justify that investment with a different model. If we improve the content, I think it's a fair ask that the price point comes up. We're not really focused on that right now. We're focused on using the content we've got, pricing it appropriately, and the price will vary in each market. In the UK, $4.99 is obviously a very low cost introductory price point, and we think it's fair reflection of the content we're going to be offering boxing fans in the UK initially.
Well, it's gone down very well, that price point, which is a very hard thing to do normally with UK fans. Very moany about that sort of stuff, but I haven't seen one bad word about sort of your launch in May so far. So
it's a good thing, and look, the pricing strategy is consistent with what we've done everywhere else. If you look at Japan, if you look at Germany, we've maintained, despite significant investment in media rights, content, affordable, flexible price points. We've never veered away from that strategy. In the US, although it's $19.99, it may appear expensive for a UK fan. You compare that to the rest of the market, where you're paying $200 a month for a cable package to get the other major sports networks on a linear package, on a pay TV package, and then you're paying regularly $70, $80, $90 for pay-per-view. So $19.99 a month, or $100 a year, which works out at like $8.33, I think, a month. It is very affordable relative. So that's a consistent strategy for us, and one we're going to be consistent with going into the global launch as well.
Talking about pay-per-view, there was a massive one recently, ESPN and Fox did a broadcast for Wilder Fury 2, rumoured to do about 800,000 pay-per-view buys in the US. What do you think of that number?
I think first of all, I think it was a fantastic show. I think it was fantastic at boxing. I think Fury's performance was incredible. And I think it's great for the sport, including broadcasters in the sport, even those who weren't broadcasting the fight, that boxing delivered such a huge event. That took over the sports sort of conversation for a week, and the promotion from Fox and ESPN and the whole sort of Fury Wilder camps was brilliant. Top Rank did a great job. I won't comment on their numbers. I think obviously I'm not sure what they needed to break even. I'm not sure the economics. It's not really my place to say, but I know that ESPN Plus would have done a huge number of pay-per-views / annual subscribers, and that's knowing what their business model is, very similar to ours. carries tremendous value. I think it tees up the trilogy fight to be huge as well. So yeah, good luck to them. I think it was a fantastic show, and I hope they did well out of it. I'm not going to sit here and sort of sneer and try and pick holes in it, because as I say, I think it's good for boxing that boxing commanded the attention of the US sports public as well as the British sporting public for pretty much a full week. It was fantastic.
Back to content. So sometimes fans in the UK, when they don't want to stay up for a show in the US that's being shown on Sky, they wake up the next morning and Sky's YouTube page have got your fight night in full, which is brilliant. I do that sometimes if I haven't woke up for a fight. Now you've got exclusive rights in the UK to the Matchroom USA shows. Will people be able to go on Sky's YouTube platform and find those highlights from the previous night?
No, because we'll own the rights exclusively.
Okay.
But we'll make full fight replays, available on our service. We're working out what we do in terms of our YouTube and social media strategy, but again, how we use that content is going to be relatively consistent with how we do it everywhere else. We're going to have an active YouTube page. We're going to be using that content smartly, but I think initially, the full card will be available almost immediately on Dazn. The fight will obviously be available live, and we'll make a selection of highlights available on our YouTube and social channels at the right time.
I think that's good news for UK fans, because that is what a lot of them do. Watch it on Sky's YouTube. Now we know we can go on Dazn's YouTube and watch it next morning if you haven't watched it live. How do you think the other territories will fare in terms of UK's gone down very well? I don't know what sort of feedback you've got from the other 200 territories. What's it been like?
I think there's a number, 7 or 8, consistent in every sort of piece of feedback we've got in our own research. If you just scan social media and reaction to any of our posts last week or this week, Australia, UK, Ireland, Scandinavia, India, Russia, Poland, those 7 or 8 markets are those that sort of consistently bubble up as the more sort of immediate opportunities for us. I think Mexico is on that list as well. We've obviously got the Golden Boy shows carry a lot of Mexican American guys, so that's going to be an interesting market for us. I think in all of those markets we identified, one, there's a huge base of hardcore fight fans, and we've got pretty good brand awareness that people know what Dazn is in those markets. They've followed our journey in the US, and I think there's going to be immediate opportunity for us to go and reach subscribers there. As I said, the beauty of Dazn being like a digital platform is that we're going to immediately see other markets bubble up and which ones work, which ones don't, where we haven't noticed that there are pockets of fans we can acquire. We'll learn that very, very quickly, and that allows us to sort of plan our business much more efficiently. So from a boring sort of like corporate planning exercise, it's going to be very, very valuable, and I think it's great for us that we can obviously just go and immediately sort of speak with and sort of engage with big numbers of fans in all those markets. The reaction's been very, very positive everywhere, including notably in those countries.
You mentioned all the markets. They're big boxing countries: UK, Mexico, Australia, Poland, Russia. Surprised me you mentioned India.
That surprised me. The research surprised me. We saw it initially around KSI Logan Paul, which obviously isn't proper boxing, right? Huge audience there for that fight. Big audience there for that fight. But if you look at the social commentary, I'm sure in reaction to a lot of the Dazn stuff last week and the content that you put out, I'm sure you'll see consistently there's a pretty solid base of hardcore fight fans there. I'm not sure what drives it. We'll learn more about it in the next few months, but it's one of our key focuses.
Okay, it's a massive population, so there are going to be fight fans in India, but it just surprised me. Now, we know in the UK that the major sporting thing is the Premier League. It's no secret. It's the same in the US. Your NFLs, your NBAs. You haven't acquired the rights to that yet. I'm sure you're looking to in the future. Is that something that Dazn are discussing at the moment? Acquiring other sports and specifically Premier League rights?
Well, remember that in all our markets outside of the US until now, look just north of the border here in Canada, in Japan, in Germany, in Italy, in Spain, we're led by football, we're led by soccer. in Japan, we've got exclusive rights to most of the European soccer leagues and the domestic J League. In Germany, we carry Bundesliga, as well as other European leagues. In Italy, we do 3 games a week from the Serie A exclusively, only place to watch those games. So it's often a misconception, we're not a solely boxing focused broadcast. Obviously this announcement of us going global with boxing in our first phase probably reinforces that misconception. Look, we buy rights from all sports sort of leagues and federations, and that's going to be our plan on the global service going forward. This is just the first phase. It's just us using the content we own globally, which is mainly boxing, and turning that on globally. Will be, as we have been this week, my inbox and the inboxes of our sort of content acquisition guys has been flooded by content salespeople trying to sell us more content. And that's one of the benefits of this move. So let's see. In the first phase, though, focused on boxing, I'm sure it will quickly develop, it will quickly evolve, as our business does all the time. And yeah, I'm sure in the future, we're definitely interested in talking to the Premier League about their UK rights at the right time. We're definitely interested in talking to the NFL and the NBA and the NHL and the MLB about their domestic rights here in the US too. So at the right time, when the content's available, and when we are in a position to bid for it, we will bid for it.
It's game over then, surely, isn't it? You acquire those rights one day.
No, it's not game over because it's a competitive market everywhere, and we're not going to necessarily come in and win every bid we go into. You're in a competitive marketplace with broadcasters that have done great jobs in growing sports who aren't going to roll over and let a new entrant come in. So, Eddie in boxing's got to be tactful, of course, but look, it's. I think Adam Smith said it this week. Sky welcome competition in the UK. We'll see if we compete. It's going to only happen if we're successful in our first phase. So we'll stay focused on that, and when the right time comes around, if we're in a position to bid, we'll make plans to bid for new content inside and outside of boxing.
In terms of your first entry, this first phase that you're talking about, how do you think that impacts Sky in terms of boxing in the UK?
Not dramatically. I'm sure it will. I spoke to Adam on Sunday before the announcement on Monday. I wanted to give him a heads up because he's a friend of mine. They won't have the shows we've been selling to them thus far, the Matchroom USA shows and the Golden Boy shows, Canelo shows, Triple G shows. I don't think that dramatically impacts their business. I think it probably alerts them to a potential more direct competition from us in the next couple of years, I'm sure. But they knew that was coming anyway, I think. So I don't think it massively affects their business. And look, we're going to continue to work together in a number of ways. It's not like we're now at all-out war with Sky. I think ultimately it's healthy for British boxing if we enter the market fully and we invest in specific UK content in the future. And it's good for people like Eddie Hearn.
Definitely good for Eddie Hearn. And good for fans because BT, Sky, and now Dazn are all competing, and all their games will rise now. So it's good for fight fans in the UK.
I agree.
Okay, the fight that we all want to see is Fury Joshua. That is the undisputed fight. That Joshua's got to get through Kubrat Pulev. Fury's got to beat Deontay Wilder again. Both favourites going into them fights. How will this work on a US point of view? Because you've got Fury where he's tied up in a contract and they use a pay-per-view model for their fights. And Joshua isn't exclusive to Dazn, but he's worked with Dazn, and I guess he's going to work with Dazn in the future. So how on earth would that work?
Well, I think the devil's in the detail. One, I think the fight location has a huge impact on that. If it's a fight in the UK and it's 4 or 5 p.m. East Coast time in the US, is that a pay-per-view in the US? You'd question that.
Yeah, 2 Brits, but yeah, it's undisputed fight. It's a good point.
You question that. If it's in Saudi Arabia, again, can they justify a pay-per-view tag? But ultimately, regardless of that, we will get around a table with Top Rank, Matchroom, ESPN, and have a conversation about the best use of those rights, the best split. There'll be bids made. There'll be a process organised by the promoters. And as ever, we'll be open-minded and open door to that conversation. I think ESPN showed a willingness last weekend with Wilder Fury 2 to work in close collaboration with Fox and sort of traditional pay-per-view channels as well. So there was multiple ways to watch that fight. seem to be very successful partnerships. So yeah, we're open-minded to that, and we'll have the conversations when the fight starts getting made. But as you said, both guys have got to get through. Let's see what happens in the trilogy fight. And Joshua's got to beat Pulev, which is guaranteed. So yeah, look, we'll get around the table with the right people, and we'll be open-minded and creative in how it can work.
Eddie's come out and said that there can be a deal in place before both Anthony and Tyson fight.
Yeah, and that's a deal for him to bring to us as and when he thinks it's ready to be brought to us. As I said, we speak to Eddie every day. We can have that conversation with him whenever he's ready to have it. But as I said, there's devil in the detail that we'll get into. Location, I think, is a huge part of that, and that I'm sure is what Eddie's focused on right now. I would suggest he's not, after the Ruiz 1 experience, not probably planning too far ahead, because you've got to take every challenge as it comes and not think too far into the future. So yeah, let's see what happens. But we're ready to have that conversation with Matchroom and with the rest of the sort of parties involved at the right time.
Sounds encouraging though. Eddie said he's had multiple discussions with Top Rank and MTK about that fight, so it looks like...
I think it will happen. It has to happen, doesn't it? I think Joshua has to fight Wilder. I think Joshua has to fight Fury. I think Joshua has to fight White again. I think there's a whole load of fights in the next 3 or 4 years that fight fans need to see. And it's great that the heavyweight division is so energised right now. And there's 15 to 20 fights you can make with those guys. There's a general sort of group behind them coming in, Dubois being sort of part of that in the UK, that comes into the mix as well. So it's great to see, disregarding the broadcaster promoter sort of political bullshit for a second, there's going to be dozens of major heavyweight fights in the next 4 to 5 years, and that's a good thing for broadcasters. Thinking with my hat on, it's a good thing for fans. So yeah, we're excited about all of it.
Interesting, you said Joshua Wilder still has that.
I mean, who knows what happens in the sort of twists and turns of this saga? Wilder could beat Fury. Then what happens? So let's just see what happens. There are multiple fights that could happen. There are scenarios. You could get on a whiteboard and make 100 scenarios of what could happen in the next 3 or 4 years, and I think that's healthy. That's good, and we're going to be a major part of that on a global basis now.
How much of a draw and how much commercial value do you think Tyson brings to the table now? Because he's become a megastar now.
He is a megastar, yeah. And he's done a fantastic job of promoting himself in the US. He's been well advised, clearly, on it. Not that we've been involved in that, but the way he's courted the US media and the US public is great. The US public love him. He's got a great story, which is what you want in a major fighter, and he's backed it up with amazing performances. So, hats off to him. I'll be honest, I was one of the people 2 or 3 years ago saying he's going to get battered by Wilder, and it'll be the end of the Tyson sort of Fury story. I was completely wrong, and we'll eat humble pie and apologise for saying that. I think lots of people are doing that right now. He is, put himself right at the top of the sport, and has engaged the US public as well as the British public, so he deserves it.
From your perspective, of course, you want that fight, the undisputed fight, to take place in the US. We've heard that Saudi have already come in with an offer. I think there was something on Twitter the other day about Bahrain coming in as well, offering truckloads of money. I'm sure you'll be pushing Eddie though to get that fight in the States.
Yeah, but that ultimately isn't really our decision. It's a promoter and fighter decision. If the money is insane from an international market, then as we learnt with Joshua Ruiz too, that's going to be tempting. It did very well for us. It was a very efficient night of business for us, afternoon of business even for us. So, look, I completely respect Eddie's position. His job is to maximise the payday for the fighters, and that's what he's employed to do by the fighters. So, let's see what happens. As I say, we'll await sort of incoming from Eddie on that, and we'll get around the table with the right people to talk about it.
What time was that Ruiz-Joshua 2 fight in New York, and then in Vegas? What time was it?
I think it was, if I recall correctly, 4 p.m, 5 p.m. East Coast, New York, and then sort of 1 or 2 p.m. on the West Coast, LA. And obviously, given it was a major sort of fight for the Mexican American community, many of whom live in California and sort of Southwest states, a lot of them watched that sort of late lunchtime, and it did fantastically for us. So when the narrative's there, when the fight is big enough, people will watch boxing any time of the day over their lunch or over a few beers late at night.
Sergei Kovalev's back on Dazn. That surprised me. Didn't expect him to be there. How did that come about?
It was part of the deal for the Canelo fight that Golden Boy got options on him. So he's fighting on the 25th of April, which should be great for us. Just sort of right before that Canelo fight on May the 2nd. So we're trying to work out how we broadcast that. Obviously, the testing will be in the very latter stages. We'll be ready to launch, if not launch. So I expect in both the US and in Russia, because we'll have the rights in Russia too. That's going to be something we focus on, and it's going to be a good, nice little warm up for the Canelo fight on May the 2nd.
So yeah, we've heard Canelo's fight plans apparently Billy Joe Saunders on May 2nd, Gennady Golovkin for the trilogy in September, and then Morata potentially in Japan in December. Is that what it looks like, Joe?
We're working on a number of things with Golden Boy and with Canelo. Not yet ready to talk about those. Look, I think there's a huge public demand for the Canelo Triple G trilogy fight. We've been on record for a year.
Is it still there though? It's declined surely a little bit.
I think amongst casual fans that fight is definitely still got. I think there's unfinished business there, and I think the two of them have a unique ability, well, not a unique ability, but an ability to engage with casual sports fans. And when the two of them fight, the pay-per-view numbers traditionally have been huge, and we are excited about making that fight for sure. Whether or not we can make it, we're sort of working on. But yeah, we definitely want to do that as part of a very strong Canelo-focused schedule in the back end of this year, starting middle of the back end of this year, starting with May 2nd.
Okay, listen, we look forward to the announcement of Canelo's opponent on May 2nd. It might go out, as it might be confirmed as this interview goes out.
Might well be.
Yeah. Joe, thank you very much for your time. Look forward to the launch in the UK, specifically for the audience on IFL. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, looking forward to being live globally, looking forward to engaging with new fight fans all over the world, and looking forward to hearing in your comment section what people think of the UK launch.